So I've got a pretty lofty goal as a beginner sewist, and that is to create my entire fall wardrobe completely from scratch. And I want to start with a basic layering foundational piece, something that is deceptively simple, but actually incredibly tricky to create, and that is a fitted knit long sleeve top. Let's get into it. Guys, this video is sponsored by Craftsy. And I can't wait to tell you more about that. But first, I just want to catch you up on what the plan is. I've revamped my mood board to be more seasonal. Very fall. We're doing project 1 today, which, like I said, is just a fitted long sleeve top. Really a lot more simple than it actually is to create because working with knits is just challenging. But recently I took a class by Jessica Giardino called Knits 101, and I learned a ton of different tips, tools, techniques in order to make working with knits a lot more successful. And I'm going to share everything I learned with you guys today, and hopefully we'll get something that looks a little bit more professional without a serger. Because I'm a beginner, I don't have a serger. I chose a boat neck style because it's a wide open neckline, and I'm gonna hack the pattern to do flared sleeves, and I will link the pattern that I use in the description box below. So let's start cutting out the fabric. Let's get into it. Something I learned in regards to cutting knit fabric, and this might seem obvious to some of you, but as a beginner, this was definitely an aha moment. When you're working with a knit and you're cutting it, don't let the excess fabric drape off the side of the table. The weight of the excess fabric will put tension on what is on the table and what you're working on cutting, and just that slight tension can cause a stretch, and that can end up warping your pieces. Your pieces may not line up, they probably won't exactly match the paper pattern in the end. The sizing might be slightly skewed, so the quick fix for me was just to clear off the rest of my table and give myself some extra workspace. If you don't have a bigger workspace, what you can do is just do a rough cut of the fabric so that you're working with a more manageable piece, and that way you don't have excess fabric that needs to hang off the side of the table. Definitely kept that in mind as I was cutting this one out. Yeah, I'm going to finish getting these pinned up, and then we'll sew up the shoulder seams and the neckline. I want to show you my setup before we get started because it's a little bit different now that I know what I'm doing. I always would size down my needle when working with a stretch fabric, which definitely helps, but this class introduced me to a ballpoint needle. It looks the same to the naked eye, but a ballpoint needle has a more rounded tip rather than a sharp one like a regular needle does. This allows the needle to slide through the existing holes between the loops of the fabric rather than piercing a new one as a sharp needle would do. This does a few different things. It prevents runs, snags, holes. It also, I have found, really reduces the amount of waviness that you get when you're sewing a stretchy fabric. That has always been a complaint of mine, and a ballpoint needle is a great fix for that. In the end, it also allows the fabric to stretch more naturally once the seam is completed because you worked with the loops of the fabric rather than piercing holes through the fibers. It makes a difference, I promise. The other major difference on my sewing machine is I have switched out the regular presser foot for a walking foot. This is a game changer for slippery fabrics like knits, as well as bulky fabrics, which knits can also be bulky at times. It moves the fabric along so much better than without it, and I have found that this also really reduces how much warping and stretching you get with your finished seam. And then lastly, I just have my machine set up to be a narrow zigzag stitch, so my needle position is just past 1, the length is at 3, and then I just put it at a regular zigzag stitch. So let's start sewing those shoulder seams. That was a lot, but those are important. So I attached the outer and the lining together all around the neckline, and then I clipped into the curves near the shoulder seams, and then I understitched, and this is what we have so far. This is such an improvement From the last project that I attempted, for reference, this is a tube top that I tried to make back in July, I believe. I gave up on it because the techniques that I was using caused an incredibly wonky and stretched out neckline versus what we have now, which lays so much flatter and it looks professional. So it's really incredible how just tweaking your techniques so slightly can make such a big difference. If you're interested in taking this Knits 101 class that I have learned so much from, I highly recommend checking out today's video sponsor, which is Craftsy. Craftsy is an online learning platform with over 2,000 classes on any hobby you can think of: sewing, knitting, crocheting, baking, cake decorating, cooking, painting, drawing, you name it. What I love is the classes are broken down into short, step-by-step lessons that are taught by honestly very approachable and award-winning instructors. You get downloadable resources, and you can even check out, they do live stream tutorials, which I have found to be very fun. Experts will sort of share their advice in real time, and that makes me feel like I'm a part of a community. I've been a member of Craftsy since March, and I reached out to them because I genuinely have gotten so much value from their platform. Learning sewing techniques from experts have given me so many tips that I just would not learn just from purchasing a sewing pattern, and I really feel like my skills are getting so much better. If you're interested in taking this Knits 101 class or any of the other classes that they offer, they're constantly adding to their library. I highly recommend checking them out. The first 1,000 of you to click the link in my description box below will get a full year of Craftsy Premium for $1.49. Just note that this offer is valid for new members only. So thank you to Craftsy for sponsoring this video, and let's finish up this top. We're very close. This is a very simple pattern. All that's left to do is to hem the bottom and attach the sleeves. So let me show you how I do that. This is currently right sides out. We have the shell, the lining right here. I'm going to reach in between the shell and the lining, and I'm going to grab the outer piece and the lining piece, but I'm gonna flip them so they're kissing right sides together like that. Just stick with me, okay? Hold it between your fingers and pull it through this armhole. And then we're going to start pinning all the way around. So keeping them right sides together, pin all the way around the hem. So we just finished our hem seam, and it looks really odd right now. It's just one big circle. Neckline on this side, seam that we just sewed on this side. What we're going to do is locate an armhole, okay? Stick our hand through, and we're going to grab the seam that we just sewed, okay? Pinch it and pull it through that armhole and give it a shake. It'll sort itself out, and boom, there we go. Now we have a shirt where all the seams are enclosed, and it looks very nice on the inside and the outside. Okay, I have already assembled each of the sleeves. I just want to finish off these edges. You don't need to finish off knit edges. Knit doesn't fray, but I learned about an overcast foot from my class. You will see that I have switched out my walking foot for this little guy. This one's really cool. It has an arm that guides your fabric so that your seam allowance is very consistent, and it can be paired with overcast stitches on your machine. They'll likely be different depending on what machine you have, so take a look at your manual and figure out which ones are stretch compatible. Please hear me when I tell you, this is a necessity if you do not have a serger, which I don't. The overcast foot paired with the overcast stretch stitches give you a very serger-like finish. Obviously, it's not the exact same thing, but it can take a lot of tension, so it's great for seams that will get a lot of stretch. So, highly recommend. I will link it in the description box. They're like $6. Very worth it. All right, we're getting close. I got one of the sleeves attached and I want to move on to hemming this. Hemming knit fabric has been so frustrating to me. If you watched my video on everything I made in my first year of sewing, you know I went on about how unsuccessful I was at hemming knit fabric for probably 10 minutes straight. Attempted several different techniques and was never really happy with it. The goal of this video is to get the most professional look possible, and to do that, I want to try using a twin needle, which I had heard about this before taking this class. However, they just look a little intimidating to me, and so I never gave it a go, but I was walked through exactly how to set it up on my machine, so I'm feeling like we can make this work. If you take a look at any basic t-shirt that you own, you will see those two parallel stitch lines along the bottom and along the sleeves. Forgot the word sleeves for a second. And this twin needle is how we can get that look on a domestic machine. So in order to do this, we need a second source of thread at the top, because there are two needles here. I just wound a bobbin, put it in the unlocked position so I can kind of pull freely. But yeah, let's get this set up. Girl, yes. I think this looks really good. I was anticipating needing to kind of change up my tension, but I think we're fine how we are because this looks good to me. Last little tip that I want to share with you. I know I've been talking a lot in this video, but I think this is going to be a game changer for creating very clean, folded over hems. I stabilized the edge of this sleeve. So my instructor, Jessica, used a product called Steam-A-Seam. I couldn't get my hands on it, but it is basically fusible interfacing, just it's cut into a uniform strip and it's on a roll. Again, I couldn't find that near me, so I cut it myself. This is featherweight interfacing. I do want to note that my sleeve is flared. I kind of hacked the pattern so that I would have a little bit more of a bell sleeve, so this seam doesn't need to stretch. I wouldn't use regular interfacing on a seam that does need to be stretched. Like if I was doing a more fitted sleeve, I would skip the fusible interfacing, or I would find that Steam-A-Seam. There's also knit fusible interfacing, so knit fusible interfacing will stretch with the fabric. So I got that on there, and then I also pressed it down one so that I have kind of a rough guide. I find that knit can really shift, and the combination of using some fusible interfacing to stabilize it and then also sort of giving myself a bit of a guide by doing a little pre-press, that will get a good result with this. So, moment of truth. Let's give this a shot. I ran out of red thread, so really don't want to go back to the store, so I'm using a very, it's more of a fuchsia. So it's a little bit dark for this fabric, but I really don't want to go back to the store, so let's give this a shot. Okay, after sewing that seam, I think I definitely should have waited and gotten some thread that matches a little bit better, because this is very dark. It really stands out. But that aside, let's just look at how it's laying. This looks so good. This looks store-bought to me. I have never had such a clean hem for knit fabrics. I will dig up some of my past knit projects and you can see what a vast improvement this is. I'm very impressed with how all of these tips sort of work together to get you something that really looks professional. So I guess I'm just gonna do the second sleeve on my own, and I'll pop this on and show you what it looks like. I was so happy with how this red one turned out that I made it in a ton of different colors. Like, this is such a good base layer for fall and winter outfits. I'm very pleased with the finishes, particularly how flat and clean the neckline looks, as well as the hem of the sleeves. I think we nailed it. Feeling very accomplished and proud of myself. Don't forget to check out Craftsy using the link in my description box below, and I will see you in my next video.